Good morning, Matt Waldman. It is Monday. I'm incredibly confused. I don't know if this is a symptom of my old age or just the fact that it's Monday morning. I don't know. I'm sorting things out here, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Getting ready to go see my granddaughter for the first time in the Hawaiian Islands. So
you got your Godzilla shirt on.
Yeah.
You're looking very jovially Hawaiian. You're clean shaven, more than less. This is fantastic. What's going on? What's going on with the rookie scouting portfolio? What about my rankings? Where is all my stuff?
Well, you know where it all is because you got it already. I know you already got it. But in case you didn't, you should check your inbox. You might want to check your spam folder if you really seriously didn't get it, and then email me because the RSP projections and dynasty rankings, I brought out the June update that was emailed to subscribers in terms of like an access email with a link and a password. And whenever you have a new update, I'll email you a new link and new password that will be different from the last one for you to look at. And you can download it in PDF or Excel format. I have forgotten a few players in June, namely Demario Douglas, Xavier Legette, let's see, Zach Evans, and Adonai Mitchell. So, when I send it out, I'll give you a little update about where they are. If not, if I forget, you can email me and I'll tell you what tiers I think they should belong in. But otherwise, you got, well over 350 players to look at there with some commentary, long-term and short-term rankings in terms of your dynasty builds. And so I think you'll have more than enough for June. And the next update will come in early August, and then you'll have a second one in probably mid to late August. I may even do a third one. Sometimes I do a third one in August for you guys. But that's available for $24.95 at mattwaldman.com. And of course, there's the pre-draft publication, which I still think is probably the superior thing to look at over the course of time. Just because it's really focused on their abilities and you can learn more about where they fit, whether or not they fit well with the team right now. That's okay, because down the line they may wind up somewhere where it works out.
I go back over time. I find myself using the pre-draft version way more. I mean, I love all the versions, of course, but the pre-draft version over the course of, as you say, over the course of time, but over the years, players change teams or they rise up or they suddenly break out, and I want to find out maybe why they're breaking out or what kept them from breaking out in the past. A lot of times the answers lie in the rookie scouting portfolio pre-draft edition, I have found. So yeah, go check that out, people. MattWaldman.com, Matt Waldman RSP. Find him on the X device at Matt Waldman. I'm at Football Diehard. You can read it right underneath my smiling face right now. But go there. And also my current top 5 fantasy headlines available on the YouTube. Go check that out. The Football Guys, the Audible channel. Both of our rankings are available at Football Guys, except Matt has fantastic explanations, in-depth analysis for all his picks. I just put them up there. Deal with it, people. And neither of us, I'm going to say, it's safe to say, have Bryce Young ranked highly among quarterbacks. I do find myself, he's like one of my firewalls in 2 QB leagues when I wait on my third quarterback. You want somebody with job security. He has that. But Andy Dalton talking about him seeing Bryce Young taking a huge jump in practice already. This seems like such a low bar. Just a reminder, it was 2-14 in the 16 games they started last year. He threw 10 interceptions, 11 touchdowns. The Panthers were tied for the lowest scoring team in the NFL. They've made some changes, Matt. They bring in Dave Canales, who's had great success with Russell Wilson, had his best season under Dave Canales in Seattle as his quarterback coach. Geno Smith's turnaround came, his comeback player of the year season came with Canales as his coach. Baker Mayfield's turnaround in 2023 in Tampa Bay came with Dave Canales. So they've obviously done that. They bolstered the middle of the offensive line, added a couple players, added a couple guards in free agency. They traded for Deontay Johnson. The table is set. What does Bryce Young do with all that?
I think he eats. I mean, I'm at 24th on my ranking for quarterbacks right now, just because we don't have proof of concept yet. But really, in the tier that he's in for me, it's above Jayden Daniels, above Daniel Jones, above Deshaun Watson, Will Levis. I think he's going to outplay those guys. I think he's in the same tier as guys like Smith, Caleb Williams, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr. Maybe not ability-wise, but based on what's going on with all those players' situations, Young's at the bottom end of that tier. And I think that he has a chance to ascend to that next tier of players where you look at him and go, he could give you Baker Mayfield-like production from last year. Well, no, I mean, not last year. He's probably not going to get Baker Mayfield-like production. But I'll say this. Can he get 35 to 3,700 yards maybe? Maybe throw for 20 to 25 touchdowns and show that he rebounded from the debacle of last year with that offensive line and those receivers you talked about? Absolutely. And the fact that they did pick Dave Canales, and you mentioned all the players that he's worked with, they all have a lot in common with Bryce Young, and the fact that they move around the pocket and can create somewhat off structure to varying degrees of success, and they're skilled players with an attacking mentality downfield. I would say Young is better than Baker Mayfield in terms of moving around a pocket, not as strong-armed. But he's not quite as skilled as what Russell Wilson was as an improviser. Well, maybe not as an improviser, but as a pocket passer. There's a lot of anticipation in Bryce Young's game, and I think that improving the receiving core, Thielen's still going to be a factor, probably more as a slot in a check down sort of way. But Deontay Johnson's going to provide support to him, and I think that you're going to see the fact that they actually have two receivers instead of one, and then maybe Xavier Legette or even Mingo can possibly provide something there that will be helpful. So yeah, I mean, we're not going to look at miracles here from Bryce Young, but I think that he can give you bye-week QB1 production with when there's a good matchup.
Right, it's a low bar, and obviously, if they don't get him fixed, I mean, the investment they've made in him beyond the first pick overall, what they took to get that first pick overall, what it ended up being, all that, and David Tepper is going to throw a drink in somebody's face at the very least if he does not rebound. But you put out some fighting words in your response there, Matt, and I'm going to be up for the fight. Jayden Daniels, listen, man, Jayden Daniels. By the way, so Jayden Daniels says I'm drafting him as a quarterback one. I am. I'm drafting him like I have him ranked as 11. Look, I get it, right? And so, I mean, the feel it or fuck it here is, do we feel Jayden Daniels is starting in Washington because of talent, or Marcus Mariota is the alternative? The answer is both. Feeling both of those things, right? But you didn't invest in this guy with the second pick overall, and to have him come in and watch and wait and learn behind Marcus Mariota or anybody. You're changing the entire franchise, right? The ownership has changed. The coach, Hugo,
hey,
you're not here to argue with me.
Come here, buddy.
Hugo is a huge Bryce Young stan. Who knew? Who knew?
I don't know. What's going on?
Find a deer, Hugo.
Yeah.
So, look, I mean, we know Daniel's great in college. We know the pluses, the playmaking ability, the rushing ability, and I think that sets him apart. And that's why I have him. I'm drafting him as a starting quarterback because I'm playing him as a lottery ticket. He's this year's Anthony Richardson, a cheap $1 million prize winner if he hits, but also because the list of guys I can draft after him that I'm perfectly comfortable playing is as long as my arm. That said, I don't have Bryce Young in that same tier behind him. I certainly don't have him behind Bryce Young. Do tell, Matt Waldman. Defend yourself, sir.
Well, I think for one is that while I like Jayden Daniels' upside to become a productive player, especially in an offense where he can be schemed to use his legs and run a lot of misdirection and deep, an attack in the vertical game. And I think he can become competent enough to actually be what they hoped Marcus Mariota might become in Tennessee. I think that he's still in a realm of skill development where he's not much better if he is better than Marcus Mariota, but he's going to be put ahead of Marcus Mariota because they know that Mariota is really a stopgap insurance policy in case things really go wrong, who can get out on the field and at least execute the offense, even if he can't do it at a super high level. And the things that I'm concerned about with Jayden Daniels is I think that his processing is a little overrated at this time. And in Cliff Kingsbury's system, Cliff Kingsbury hasn't really impressed me as a offensive mind in the NFL at this stage. And when you look at what he hasn't done, I think that Daniels is going to need a lot more scheming to really succeed. And when you scheme a lot of plays for a quarterback where it's not just match up, read the defense and go, but it's let's do misdirection, let's do trick plays, let's do RPOs, let's read the field where you're making simpler reads because maybe you're not really processing those second and third reads in a timely manner. What ends up happening is that defenses may get fooled once, but they don't get fooled twice. And so my concern about Jayden Daniels is we may see maybe not as bad of a struggle as what we saw from Bryce Young last year, because the offensive line is better and there is talent on that receiving core that wasn't really in Carolina across the board. But I don't think that Cliff Kingsbury is going to figure out how to utilize him as much, because I think Kingsbury is going to think he's going to have a Kyler Murray-esque type of player who can create on the move. And I think what we're going to see is that he's more like Mariota, which means that he really creates best when you say you're going to run to this spot after we misdirect people in an opposite direction. He's not going to create like Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray. And I think as a result of that, defenses are going to be able to feast on him a little bit better than those guys. So I have some concerns.
All right, that's fair enough. I mean, given that stance of your positioning is understandable. I think there's a lot of things to like here: the playmaking ability, the supporting cast, the offense. I mean, Kyler Murray, and you made your argument on that. Kyler Murray was quarterback? Was the top 10 in his first two seasons. He was number 2 or 3 in his second season under Kingsbury. Look, I have issues with Kingsbury's offense. One of them is not that the quarterback can't excel. So I'm going to go ahead and play my lottery ticket, and you're going to go ahead and laugh at me when it fails miserably.
Probably. But you'll probably be doing your dance around November. But it's okay.
I do think the point of this is we could differ on this, but that range of quarterbacks that you're able to get, in that early quarterback 2 conversation, right? It's like it seems like a ridiculously robust list this year. Is you just you get outside the starters this year, you're looking at. I mean, right now, current underdog ADP. Brock Purdy is quarterback 13. Trevor Lawrence is 14. Tua is 15. Jared Goff is 16. Justin Herbert is 17. Kirk Cousins 18. Matthew Stafford 19. Aaron Rodgers 20. Deshaun Watson 21. Baker Mayfield 22. Geno Smith 23. Hell, Will Levis is 24.
Reasons why I'm never needing to purchase a lottery ticket this year at that position.
But reasons why you can purchase a lottery ticket, take a chance, and then mitigate all the risk with any one of those guys, or you can even take it outside that tier and go with Derek Carr if you dare. I know Spencer Rattler is standing by to usurp him, but I mean, but also that's why I'm in on the Bryce Young is that firewall. Bo Nix as well in Denver, a guy I think is going to end up starting. I know there's some talk about Jared Stidham, making some competition. I don't think that's the plan. Yeah. But if I'm looking for a quarterback 3, if I wait too long, as I often do in 2 quarterback leagues, I'll focus on my first 2 early. Then sometimes I'll push it a little far, and people can be a little more aggressive in super flex. And I kind of call them the firewall players, guys that are the last stand of guys I think are going to be starters. I think those guys, I'm entirely comfortable with Bryce Young in that role, and entirely comfortable with Jayden Daniels as my lottery ticket. Even if Matt Waldman thinks I'm stupid, look at him, his lips curled up, he's angry at me. It's horrible, people. All right,
I might rise out of the sea and start wrecking buildings. Let's see.
You guys gonna come after me like I was a deer. We'll have to tell that story sometime on the podcast. Are you feeling Lad McConkey leading the Chargers receiving corps? Positive reporting out of the OTAs, the final mini camp. The LA Times had something about it this week, and Justin Herbert saying great things, and the supporting cast is not huge, not like daunting, right? I mean, we got Josh Palmer, and he's still to prove himself, Quentin Johnston, a handful of also rans there. Lad McConkey, feeling him as the leading receiver in this group.
I am so feeling this. I mean, I am buying up every single morsel of what has been said about Lad McConkey from his teammates, because that's what's most telling. When your quarterback says he plays like a 4 or 5 year veteran, he runs great routes, he understands leverage. Very rarely do you hear a quarterback go in detail and say he understands leverage. That's probably one of the most key things you should learn about wide receiver play, is do they read the leverage of the defender playing over them, under them, beside them, and understand when to break off a route or how to set up a defender, especially in zone coverage, where zones get disguised a lot more in the NFL, and you see receivers struggle with that. So for me, when you hear those types of things in June about McConkey, and you've lost Keenan Allen, a top 10 receiver last year, you've lost Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer is a competent contributor, not necessarily a competent starter. He's for fantasy purposes. And Quentin Johnston is still catching the ball like he was catching it last year. He's just holding on to it a little bit more in practice right now. Again, it's May and June, folks. It's not, right. It's not hitting season. So we're still, and we still have a lot to see from Quentin Johnston. If you ask me, and you can look at Football Guys rankings, I have Lad McConkey as the number 7 receiver overall in my rankings. And if you look this year, I don't have a lot of outliers compared to relative to many folks. So really, if McConkey is one of my major outliers, I've become more confident in the past 5 to 6 years about putting rookie receivers high in my rankings who I think have the best fits. And while I don't think Lad McConkey is the most skilled rookie receiver of this group, it's a vaunted group, I think he landed in the best situation to have starter production. And I think he's going to replace a lot of what Keenan Allen did last year in a Greg Roman offense that emphasizes the middle of the field. And Justin Herbert's good in the middle of the field. So you're going to see McConkey not only in the middle of the field, but when they use him outside, because he's such a good runner, they're going to use him in that RPO game on those scheme plays, screens, RPOs, little throwouts like that. And he's going to gain yardage that way too. And they did talk about how good his quickness is as well. So it's not just, he understands the June playbook and can acclimate fast. He's also sudden.
Yeah, he's a versatile playmaker. He can play inside and outside, so that gives him a little bit of an advantage there. You know me, my analysis is simple. There's a 3 after the 4 in the 40 speed, or I'm pretty excited about that. If there's a 2, I'm more excited, but the 3 is great because it still matters when you can outrun the defenders and do things like that. So I'm on board with this. Also, though, my biggest assessment is opportunity, right? I mean, as I run through the filters, the first filter for me is opportunity. I think the opportunity is there for them. I'm feeling him as well. Quentin Johnston, just quickly, I mean, I'm looking around to see if Ming can hear me. You could swing a cat. You can't swing a cat without hitting a first-round bust at wide receiver over the course of time. You know what I mean? God, I mean, the list is so long. Kevin White, I mean, if we were sitting here just throwing out
Odell
names,
Odell Green, was it?
Justin Blackman, Troy Williamson, Laquan Treadwell, Charles Rogers. I mean, it's like, it's pretty endless, right?
Yeah.
So is feeling Quentin Johnston, maybe Jameson Williams, bust or not?
Right now, he has to prove he's not going to be a bust. So I'm feeling the idea that he will be at least a significant disappointment relative to where they drafted him, because they the way they used him last year, it looks like they did what they envisioned from Jalen Reagor, the Eagles envisioned from Jalen Reagor, which was, let's use Jalen Reagor as really a primary receiver who can go up and win targets, when he really wasn't that. Quentin Johnston, he's a guy that it occasionally worked for him to go up and win targets because he's bigger, stronger, faster than most cornerbacks in the NCAA. But the amount of mistakes he made to make a good play doesn't fly in the NFL. It was like Tevin Coleman. I've often talked about running for over 170 yards against Ohio State, but it really was amounted to 3 carries amid a bunch of bad decisions that you can get away with in college and still be a good starter. But when you go to Atlanta and now you put your team behind in the playbook and what they're trying to do, suddenly they got to take you off the field or change their scheme to accommodate you because you don't run the scheme as well in the NFL as you did or as what you got away with at Indiana. And I think it's the same with Quentin Johnston, is that he'd be better as a slot receiver eventually, or a guy who runs quick in-breaking hits. And he might get that kind of Rashad Bateman type of role here in Greg Roman's offense, and that might help him. But I don't think that makes him a primary receiver who you say, go up and win it. Go up and, one-on-one, 3rd and 17. The defense is going to put a guy on an island and say, beat him, and you win the game. Quentin Johnston isn't going to be that guy, at least unless he totally revamps his game. And it's going to be hard to do because tracking the ball with your hands and putting them in the right position is a difficult thing to unlearn and relearn this far into his career.
All right, fair enough. And I tend to agree with that. I'm not out there actively drafting him, and it sounds like I shouldn't. Marquise Brown, I am actively drafting. Is his name officially Hollywood now? Did he actually change that? I don't know. I talked to Chief Blitz's NIck Athan over the weekend. He characterized Brown as the de facto wide receiver 1 with the Rashee Rice suspension looming. Are you feeling that?
Yeah, I'm totally feeling that. And I think that even with Rashee Rice coming back, there's a possibility that Brown is just the more refined option who can win downfield for you, but also earn a lot of those routes in the middle of the field and make some of the quick adjustments that I think Rice is still probably learning. Rice earned a lot of looks on schemed plays, those RPOs, throwouts, quick hitting things where maybe you can run after the catch, and that's where his value is really going to be at its highest. So them as a combo, it's great, but I think Marquise Brown will be the guy, and then because he establishes himself, as long as he can stay healthy, which is the big issue, can he play more than 11 to 13 games? If he can do that, then I think that you're going to see him remain the number 1 option in that offense. And with Brown and Xavier Worthy, threatening the field, downfield, that's great. Or being able to use one downfield and run off the defense a bit and have the other get the ball quickly is going to be quite valuable for the Chiefs.
All right, fair enough. I agree with all that, so I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. I like the additional speed in this offense just in general. I think it's going to be great news for Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce as is, and somebody else is going to benefit from it. I think it's going to be Marquise Brown. Geno Smith, has he got another rebound in him this season playing under Ryan Grubb, the new offensive coordinator?
Absolutely. And it's, you listen to Jaxon Smith-Njigba, he says I think we can be one of the best offenses in the NFL this year. That's some youthful optimism probably from a player who's only had 1 year in the league. But I'll say this, Geno Smith, a lot of his troubles stemmed from losing both his tackles in game 1 of last year and then not having suitable replacements because offensive line is difficult to have depth with in the first place. And that can really derail a lot of what your offense is about, especially when you're a Pete Carroll play action pass, drop back, and everyone knows you're dropping back on quicker, longer drops and that kind of thing and having to chuck the ball downfield. I think you're going to see the ability for Geno Smith to make adjustments at the line of scrimmage in Ryan Grubb's offense and have a lot more options to diagnose and switch to, and that's something that's been a feature of that offense that we're going to see play out. And Smith has always been a heady player in that department. It's just that maybe recognizing certain coverages post snap was difficult from early on with the Jets, because the Jets were craptastic. They didn't have an offensive line. He didn't have great receivers, and he couldn't level up as fast with the surrounding supporting cast as maybe a young Brock Purdy could. He was in more of a Mac Jones situation in New England. And so I think that this year with Smith-Njigba, whose work ethic is apparently awesome, and they're really excited about the role he's going to have. Tyler Lockett is still good. DK Metcalf is still very good. This team is going to, I think this team's going to thrive, and they're going to have a chance to be a dark horse in the NFC West.
It makes perfect sense. You brought up Jaxon Smith-Njigba. A lot of talk from the locals of him overtaking Tyler Lockett. Feel it or fuck it.
I'm open to it. So I'm feeling the idea, even though if I have Lockett above him, it's not very far above him at this stage. I mean, I think right now I have, where do I have Lockett? I've got Lockett as wide receiver 35 and Smith-Njigba is 36. So they're neck and neck for me at this point. And if one clearly gets the opportunity to overtake the other, you might see more of a distance in them as August comes. But I think that we're just going to see Smith distribute the ball and spread it around enough and be good enough to support probably what you would say is a clear number one, wide receiver one in fantasy, or two really strong wide receiver twos and a good wide receiver three. And if that happens, Geno Smith is probably going to be a top 15 quarterback, maybe even a top 10 quarterback this year. So I'm feeling it with Njigba because he's a sound route runner. You saw some big play acumen last year, especially in crunch time. That shows you that that the moment wasn't too big for him. But we also have to remember that I don't think Lockett's lost a ton at age 31. I still think he's got another year, maybe two left in him.
I think that's reasonable enough. I think, we're bearing the lead here. DK Metcalf is going to be a dominant force. I think this is my takeaway from this receiving core this year. Look, I go back to, some of the things that I like, my narrow vision of these things. And some of them come down to just like, who is bigger and faster? And last year, if the next gen stats are to be believed, there was nobody in the NFL faster than DK Metcalf.
Bob Harris is a cleavage GM. Speed is the cleavage of. There he is. Look at him, Bob.
It's easy, but opportunity. And I do think with this offense coming in, maybe being a little pass happier. I think that's why Ryan Grubb is there. What we saw at the University of Washington is why he's on board, right? So, yeah. But I like all of them. So I think you can buy them all. All of them to me are probably priced better than they should be. I want to say, just looking at the current underdog ADPs, I was checking it last night and saw, where did I see Metcalf was like way off the list, I thought, for where he should be. Let me locate him for you, Matt Waldman. We have, I used to be able to read more quickly than I do now. It's because he's wide receiver 22. I was looking actually a little higher. I think wide receiver 22, that's, still round 3, but yeah. I think that's not an unreasonable value for him.
Was Ming on your keyboard again? I mean, in your monitor again? Okay.
No, he's not on my monitor. I have no good excuses.
Okay. That's okay.
And, after that, I think Lockett and Lockett is wide receiver 51, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba is going a little bit ahead of that wide receiver 44, I want to say. So yeah, so I think they're all reasonably priced.
Yeah, no, that works.
All right, T. Higgins. I feel like I haven't been drafting him, and I don't think I ever felt like he wasn't going to be a Cincinnati Bengal, but that little bit of uncertainty factored in with some of the players going around him. You feel like he's going to stick around? Like my concerns are there's a lot of possible outcomes here. How about this? Feel it or fuck it. T. Higgins traded by midseason.
Absolutely feeling that possibility. because if Jermaine Burton plays to his level of potential, he is a better fit outside than Higgins in this Zach Taylor offense that wants to run routes over the middle of the field and get their receiver on the move and allow them to do their work after the catch. Think Will Fuller in role relative to DeAndre Hopkins. I would say Jamar Chase is the DeAndre Hopkins with more juice. And then I would say that Jermaine Burton is more of the Will Fuller type of player. Maybe not as fast, but certainly a guy who can threaten that way. Higgins is a great jump ball receiver. He's a good route runner at the boundary. He's sturdy and can get some yards after the catch at the boundary, but he's not as versatile. And so I think this is his swan song. And he, they may keep him this year because it gives them a chance to give Burton one-on-one matchups, but and really get plum matchups to exploit the defense. And now that you really put defenses in a bind with three good receivers, I think that's the way to go. But if they get a great offer for Higgins and Burton is playing really well and they feel good about what they see from Josephus or Charlie Jones and feel like they could put Burton more often outside and feel good about what Josephus offers as a boundary player, they may do it. Or if like one of their tight ends like Eric All or Gesicki performs reasonably well in their ground game is working and they feel like they can go more often with two receivers. So there's a lot of options here. Higgins is definitely gone next year. I don't see a chance.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine them having to pay. They're going to have to pay Jamar Chase, obviously, and giving Higgins a contract that he's going to be satisfied with. I mean, obviously, thinks he should be paid with the rest of these guys all making the $30 million a year range. I don't see how that's all going to be feasible on the same team.
He's been eating too much of that Skyline chili, and it's wrecked his brain, I think, a little bit.
I'm with you on this one. T. Higgins, not long for a Bengal, although this year, to me, waiting around, playing this year on the franchise tag seems to be the wisest course of action for him. You make your 21.8 guaranteed this year, and then seems like every new contract is going to reset the market, and just whether you're perceived to be the top of it or not, you're going to get drug up just as being somewhere near the top.
I hope he's investing his money well. I really do, because this might be the apex of what he's making this year and the next contract.
So. I think in the next contract he'll get that, whether it's Amon-Ra St. Brown money, which is close to 30 a year or something in that range. I think someone will pay him. I mean, that's the way the market's going.
I just think in 2 years when he's not on a contending team and he's disappointed as a primary receiver that some team bought into, he's going to be wishing that he was still secondary receiver on a great offense. But
how will we feel about Garrett Wilson at that point? Feel it or fuck it. Garrett Wilson delivering Davante Adams Packers era for value, playing alongside Aaron Rodgers, assuming he comes back.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers will be back, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be healthy, and Garrett Wilson is going to get that role. I'm buying into that. I'm feeling good about it. The offensive line looks better. The question is whether it can stay healthy, with Tyron Smith in tow there and all that. But if they can stay healthy, Aaron Rodgers stays on his feet. It's a couple of ifs, and they're big ones. But Wilson has been good with Zach Wilson, with Mike White, with Joe Flacco. I'm thinking with like Achilles damaged Aaron Rodgers, we're looking at top 10 numbers this year, maybe even top 5.
And my Aaron Rodgers coming back was merely a joke, people. He wasn't on hand for the final minicamp mandatory sessions and caused a lot of angst among at least one reporter on the Twitterverse. So a lot of people very excited.
He's not campaigning by train to be vice president of the United States or anything like that.
Well, nobody actually knows. I think that's anytime there's a mystery, the Jets could have alleviated this, right? It's an unexcused absence. The Jets could have just called it an excused absence and told us all to go suck it, right? But instead, they wanted to make it, well, it's unexcused. We know where he is, and we understand it's very important to him, but we're not excusing it. Well, You could have made all this go away by saying, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers excused absence, moving the minicamp, doing all kinds of things." Aaron Rodgers himself, who, like, I get the the desire to drag him through the brambles on this one, folks, because he said at some point, "Oh, anything that's not football related is just bullshit at this point." I get it. I get all your issues. It's 2 days. He was there the entire offseason program. Like, I'm not an apologist for Aaron Rodgers.
So the Jets passive aggressive. So the Jets were
passive aggressive. Totally screwed this.
They're like
totally
that passive aggressive member
their
at the
handling
family
of
table.
Their handling of this is the problem, not Aaron Rodgers. Okay, Aaron Rodgers being away is a problem. They could have made it no problem. That's
Pass the peas, Bob. You ruined my life.
You're welcome.
Right.
Blake Corum, the Los Angeles Rams rookie running back from Michigan. Does he overtake Kyren Williams in 2024?
Not without an injury, but he's going to be that guy that by 2025 I think it's going to happen. The fact that Sean McVay's already saying he's pleased with them, going to an offensive coordinator's players don't count anonymous meeting and saying, "Hi, I'm Sean McVay. I don't value players enough," and everyone's standing up and applauding and giving him his chip, because that's a huge statement right there in itself.
The thing about Sean McVay is his offense, to be at its peak, requires a super potent feature back. We can go back to Todd Gurley. I mean, we can go back over the course of time, and it's always someone. The problem is he doesn't care who it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he will change those guys like he changes his undershorts, and I'm assuming he adheres to some form of hygiene and does that. So
he looks pretty well groomed, I would say. He might win the well groomed award.
But I think that's the thing, right? Like, we could all go back 2 years ago and look at Cam Akers' super strong finish, and there was a lot of history and things going on behind that. But his willingness to just say, "Nah, all right, next guy," and here comes Kyren Williams, and Kyren Williams averaging over 20 chances a game. These are the thing fantasy managers should be pursuing. I think right now you are correct. Kyren Williams, as long as he's healthy, and I know people, if you've heard something about the foot, there is something about the foot. There's always something about his foot, but he was back for the mandatory mini camp and on the field. So don't read too much into that just yet.
No, but I will say this. I think that Blake Corum, this will be like an Adrian Williams, Chester Taylor situation from way back in the day in 2007, when in 2006 Taylor rushed for like 1,200 yards, and then the next year he had 807 touchdowns, and Adrian Peterson had 1,300 yards. I don't think Corum's going to be like Adrian Peterson to Kyren Williams completely like that, but I bet Blake Corum maybe is the guy who has 800 yards this year, and Williams has the 1,200 yards, and then next year Corum's the man and Williams is the backup.
I think that's a perfectly reasonable approach. And by the way, the price is slipping on Kyren Williams. He was going like tail end of the first round or just into the second. Now he's fallen down the ranks a little bit, as you would expect, just partly due to the uncertainty of a guy like Corum showing up, a little bit of the news of the foot injury. We tend to overreact in the moment in these best balls, so don't freak out. But if you get a little value on Kyren Williams, jump all over that. Reminder, over the last 5 weeks of the season, weeks 12 through 17, 12 through 18, when he came back from his ankle injury, cost him 5 games, right? He was still fantastic. He's third in the league in rushing. But over the last 5 games, 25 touches a game, people. That's league-winning volume, and whoever their running back is going to be gets that. So I'm not against throwing a late-round pick on Blake Corum as well. Corner the market on those Rams. Somebody's going to be very busy there, kids. That's all I'm saying. Trevor Lawrence is going to be very busy counting his money, at least for some period. 5 years, $275 million, $200 million guaranteed, 142 fully guaranteed at signing, $55 million a year. That's Joe Burrow money. I don't know. Feel it or fuck it. Is Trevor Lawrence worth the pay?
Yeah, I think he is. And I think that you look at the 9-8 Jaguars last season, and while people want to blame a lot of that on him, I saw multiple interceptions where his offensive line basically put him in harm's way, and he made throws that could have gone either way, that really, like, he was making the right decision, and the pass rush let it through in a way that you really couldn't blame him for the ball being a little errant. And also some drops by receivers. I mean, listen, on his own, Tank Bigsby caused 2 interceptions, and just on his own, just for attacking balls that I saw. I look at Lawrence, and maybe he's not elite without top talent around him, but very few really good quarterbacks are. But he's good enough for them to be a mid-level team when he doesn't have surrounding talent around him, and that says something.
I think we should not overlook how bad that offensive line was last year.
It's awful.
And a couple of things, like I like some of the changes they made to the receiving core. I mean, I would have been happy if Calvin Ridley had stayed there. I like the addition of Brian Thomas. I think, over time he'll emerge, but I like some of the pieces they have there. But the offensive line is going to be the key. The coaching staff should, he should continue to build on that. But something that just can't be overlooked with Trevor Lawrence, he's tough as a freaking nail.
Yes.
Right. I mean, the guy, and last year the injuries were an issue, but they weren't the issue they might have been with another player, I don't think. And that's been his history over the course of his time in the NFL.
He makes some really tough throws that are big time plays that very few quarterbacks can make. To me, he's kind of like where he's in a better position than where Matthew Stafford was in Detroit, like early mid-career. And I think that we're going to see that play out quickly. Bob, just a pulse check. Let's see if he hears you. Repeat after me. Bryce Young sucks.
Bryce Young sucks.
Nope, nothing. So okay.
Out of sleep.
He left the room. I don't even know what.
Jayden Daniels rules.
Nothing. Okay.
Oh no, there's trouble going on. I can see you're getting edgy. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Odunze thinks very highly of Odunze. Do you agree with his? He'd like to lead the Bears in receiving and break Puka Nacua's rookie mark.
I love the ambition. I love his game and what he can become. But with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore in tow, that's unlikely. If it happens, then Caleb Williams is going to be the number one quarterback in fantasy this year by a large margin, or which is kind of in the realm of possibility, but unlikely. Or more likely, both those dudes get hurt, and Odunze has to be the man. And I think that can happen, and his value would go upward if either one of those receivers gets hurt and is gone for more than 6 to 8 weeks. But that's the only scenario.
Too many pieces right now. Totally agree with that. So sorry, Rome. Not fuck you, but fuck that notion. But future is very bright for Odunze. I think we all, we sorted through all this, but if somebody was arguing before the draft that he was the best of the top three, I think that's not an illegitimate argument. I mean, I heard arguments for everybody. For Marvin Harrison Jr., from Malik Neighbors, I heard that from you. I heard Odunze from some people. I think you could pick your poison there and make a strong argument.
That tall, bearded, blonde-haired wide receiver analyst who employs Austin Eckler by the name of Matt, I think he does a pretty good job. I think he liked Odunze too.
Yeah, I believe he did as well. Lamar Jackson, I like him. Is he the safest quarterback in the top 5 for fantasy football purposes?
I think in a counterintuitive sense, yes, because people think, oh, he runs so much, he's going to get hurt, But he's probably the safest runner out there because he never really gets touched very much. He gets his yardage and gets out of bounds pretty well, and he makes 8 million people miss when he can't get out of bounds. And he's a very good thrower in between the numbers. And last year, he demanded a change in offense as part of wanting to stay in Baltimore. They gave it to him, and he made a lot of progress. And now they're talking. Now the reporters, who I think are a little bit late, are like, he's making progress with pre-snap reads. He's showing diagnostic skill. He's really grown. This was all available in his game, and I think now he's just getting a chance to. Now that he's acclimated to Todd Monken's system, you're going to see it more often. And with Andrews back, with the fact that Likely can deliver at least top 15 production as a tight end when Andrews is gone. I think Bateman's better than people realize. Flowers has played well. Strong running game in Derrick Henry. There's just too many options in depth for you not to look at this and say Lamar Jackson. And we've seen all that missing. We've seen all that missing, including a bad offensive line, and he still was a top 12 quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think seeing him push the ball down the field a little more. I want to circle back around to the Chiefs. I kind of touched on this when we talked about Marquise Brown. But Patrick Mahomes' average depth of target has fallen dramatically, noticeably since Tyreek Hill left, and last year was at the low. So we have Xavier Worthy with the famously 4.21 40, Marquise Brown with the 4.27, I think it was 4.28, something in that range. This pops into mind because Nick Athan told me yesterday or Saturday that he sees a 5,000-yard passing season this year. Do you see them pushing the ball down the field more in 2024? Is this a big Patrick Mahomes rebound? Might he not be included in the safest top 5?
Oh, he's absolutely in the safest top 5. He's probably the safest top 2 or 3, easily. Now, can he have 5,000 yards and return to that? Yes. Does it necessarily mean that they're going to push the ball downfield more? I think the answer is not necessarily, because even if you have speed, if teams are playing cover 2, doesn't mean you're just going to blow by the cover 2 on a regular basis if the safeties have enough depth. And one of the things that was mentioned in that article, somebody I know made the commentary in there at Football Guys that I read, was, some astute writer that put something out on Sundays by the name of Bob Harris, said to the fact that there was a quote in there about Mahomes saying, I've got to learn that if it's not there, just give the ball out quickly and check it down and let the guys run with it. So what that tells me is, especially against cover 2, don't try and look for the big play. And when you've got speed underneath as well as speed over the top, you're going to get big yardage that way. And I think that that's what we're going to see more likely, is a lot of yards after the catch and Mahomes just being a distributor and taking what's there. And it's not like he's bad at that, but if Mahomes, a perfectionist to a high degree, and someone who is really a huge, big time student of the game says, I was bad at that, bad in Mahomes speak is he's not Zach Wilson. He's just like, I'm only an all-star at this. Right. I need to be like all-world at it. So he's trying to, be Tom Brady at this stuff. So I don't think you're going to see depth of target rise dramatically as people think, because I don't think they're going to solve cover 2 as much that way. They're going to solve cover 2 by saying, okay, sure, you're going to have to play deeper because we're going to threaten you with more depth of target downfield on a certain respect, or depth of routes downfield. But with the targets, we'll just dump it off because I can give it to any number of guys who get yards after the catch in the short game, and you're going to be having fits trying to tackle them.
Yeah, it seems like totally reasonable. All right, a couple final ones. Jonathan Brooks, any surprise that he's not going to be ready for the start of training camp?
None at all. I mean, come on now. ACL tear, and everybody's like, he may be ready for training camp. That's the buzz for draft season, right, Bob? That's why it's okay. It's okay that we drafted him. Yeah, it's a trap. Exactly.
It is. But I do. I think I don't expect. Everyone heals differently. I say this all the time. Some guys come back more quickly. We've seen it with various players over the course. I mean, go back. I've thrown Terry Allen out there, or Adrian Peterson. Possessing the superpowers. Others
wish casting Nick Chubb. Casting Nick Chubb.
It's not happening.
I know. Me neither.
We can get into Nick Chubb a little bit. I am not drafting Nick Chubb this year. I'm just not. And I hope he comes back, and I hope he's fantastic. And it seems like the Browns think he will, but he is 28 years old. And this is not the first time, not his first rodeo. But I think the thing for him was 2 surgeries because of the severity of the injury. One wasn't until November. So keep your powder a little drier on Nick Chubb. If you're Bob Harris, that's what you're doing. If you're Matt Waldman, you don't care. Nick Chubb's just too damn good.
He's 40th on my board. I'm with you. I mean, Gene Bramwell went to great lengths. I remember telling him about Chubb's surgeries after the Senior Bowl on the way back home. And he said he went into great detail talking about how tying up that knee with 3 ligament tears, most often one of those tie-offs is too loose or too tight, just on one ligament. When you have 3 at the same time that you got to do, he said most of the time it feels too tight or too loose. So for Chubb to look the way he did, that meant that he must have had a perfect surgery, and to have a second perfect surgery on the same knee, I'm hoping for it, wishing for it, but I'm not believing it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. And Jonathan Brooks, I think he will be playing this year. Will he open season on the PUP list? Entirely possible. Could he open the season ready to go? We saw Breece Hall do that last year and get off to a super fast start, right? And then, but even over the course of time, as good as Breece Hall was going back, there were periods where he was bothered by soreness, and they had to be cautious with him. So expect a little caution, and if caution is mostly early on, that's, in my book, better. You get a little.
He'll finish stronger than he
Right.
started, and that
Exactly.
may give you more fantasy value if you look at rankings where he's higher right now. It's not because it's all year, but it's at the best time of year.
All right, let's close out with this. Is Jameis Winston this year's a Flacco, the new Cleveland backup?
He could be, because famous Jameis, I mean, listen, he fits what Flacco did better than Deshaun Watson does. And while Watson is recovering from shoulder surgery and he's throwing every other day, and Kevin Stefanski's given the party line of that he looks like the same guy with the zip to me, I don't think that, I think Winston, they brought Winston and Tyler Huntley in. Now, why did they do that? Is that because they wanted to replace Dorian Thompson-Robinson? Well, partially, maybe. They looked at him and said maybe he's not close to being ready as a backup. But I also think it's because I think this organization looks at Watson and goes, we're saddled with him, but any chance we get to be able to use somebody else, if he does pull some of the stuff that we think he pulled last year, that we're going to give the good party line to, we need another player. And Winston, I think, is not great, but he's cheap and safe enough to be the Flacco, strong-armed, aggressive downfield, good play action game. We can go back to a strong run game, not have to spread the offense as much, and we can take advantage of that style of play that Stefanski's mostly comfortable with and Ken Dorsey will go along with if necessary.
Now, fair enough. As long as Joe Flacco isn't this year's Joe Flacco, because actually that would be okay, because I have been burning a late round pick on Flacco in every single league. I'm drafting Anthony Richardson, which, as anyone who listens to this regularly knows, is almost every single league I'm in.
I will not stand for Joe Flacco playing this year. I will not stand for that.
I'm not having it, but I'm willing to burn a last round pick on it just in case, because I'm burning a 5th rounder on Anthony Richardson.
Always prepped and ready, Bob Harris. Always prepped and ready.
All right, Matt, we're not going to be here next week. You're going to be somewhere else playing Godzilla to the world. So we'll return in 2 weeks hence.
That sounds great. Yeah.
All right.
Happy days, everyone.
Have a great vacation.
Right.
Love you. Bye.
Thanks, man. Love you. Bye.